Without a shadow of a doubt, even the greatest authority on the Arabic language cannot comprehend the characters or the stories of the Quran if he had never read the Hebrew Bible and or the New Testament, because most of the personalities mentioned in the Quran are bereft of any background explaining their existence. They are two-dimensional characters without vitality and totally insipid. Many of the most important biblical names appear all of a sudden in a verse in the Quran without any introduction or elaboration, such as Adam, Abraham, Ishmael, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, David, Solomon, Job, and Jesus, to name just a few. It is as if the Quran was being recited to people who already knew the background of these personalities. The stories in the Quran jump from one character and time period to a completely different and unrelated another character and time period within a few verses from each other. The Quran has absolutely no concept of time or space. It can be discussing Abraham in the early verses of a surah, and then all of a sudden the reader is transported to the time of Moses or Job or David or Jesus without a hint that they are unrelated to the subject at hand. The Quran has complete disregard for history and historicity, since it mixes up biblical and New Testament stories, their times, their names and characters, and yet claims that it is divinely inspired through the agency of the angel Gabriel, transmitting it to Muhammad through Allah's revelations. To add insult to injury, and with a remarkable degree of disdain for veracity and authenticity, the Quran implies that its version of events is the correct one, while those of the Bible, older by 2,100 years, and the New Testament, older by 640 years, are not. It is the only holy book that the writer knows of that insults and denigrates and attacks the very books upon which and from which its stories are made up, as well as every other religion on the planet that does not believe in Allah and Muhammad as his messenger. The shocking number of discrepancies between the original versions of events as handed down to humanity in the Bible and their different versions in the Quran had to be explained away by the Muhammadan exegetes. They sincerely believed that the Quran is the word of Allah and hence cannot possibly be in error. But at the same time, they could not explain these variations away in a logical and sensible manner. Some of them concluded arbitrarily out of hand, with utter contempt to logic or reality, and without recourse to documentary or intellectual arguments, that all the previous revelations must have been corrupted or altered to deny Muhammad and his Quran their rightful position as prophet and as divine revelations. The Judeo-Christian tradition reveres the concepts and the precepts of the text of the Bible, but not the physical book itself, unlike the followers of Muhammad, whom we witness on television, who reverence the physical book of the Quran and treat it and its contents as the word of Allah, unalterable, eternal, and all-knowing. The Quran repeatedly asserts that Muhammad was only concluding previous revelations and that he was not bringing about a new religion. The concept of Islam has been deliberately misrepresented by the followers of Muhammad to suit their own political and sectarian agendas, especially since Muhammad neither discovered nor created this concept, because it was actually the concept of Islam, the belief in the one and only God, as practiced by the Jews of Arabia, that inspired the pagan Muhammad to create a scripture for his people in the first place. Muhammadan Islam is the cult of Muhammad, especially since his followers are mandated to emulate his Quran and his Sunnah, that is, to follow his deeds, thoughts, actions and sayings as representative of the most perfect man that has ever lived on this earth. In today's political correctness infested societies, to face facts and truth eyeball to eyeball is not acceptable. To believe and mention that some people are not equal intellectually or physically or otherwise to others is definitely forbidden. People have to weigh every word or sentence so that no other's feelings would be hurt. Unfortunately, this culture of political correctness seems to be a very one-sided affair, as it is blatantly clear that the followers of Muhammad have not been made aware of this new and debilitating concept, because they attack in clear and unambiguous language in print, on radio, on television, and on the internet. The beliefs, the holy books, and the religions of all those who do not believe as they do in Allah and Muhammad as his messenger. That is, all Christians, all Buddhists, all Hindus, all animists, all Jews, as well as all those Muhammadan sects who follow different paths, almost 80% of humanity. Before writing any essays, writers or authors are warned about plagiarism. According to our research, the Quran does not contain a single new, practical and spiritual idea, concept, thought or precept that in any way, shape or form is equal to or superior to anything that the Quran itself has plagiarized, plundered, pirated and or perverted from the Bible, from Zoroastrian religion, from pagan Arabian religion, their scriptures, their traditions and their fetishes. Not one single such operative and applicable new verse exists. The Quran asserts that Allah allows abrogation, that Allah negates, replaces or dismisses earlier instructions with the newer ones. It is the only scripture in which its God, Allah, is shown not to be omniscient, a supreme God who does not know his creatures well enough, requiring him to change his mind and instructions repeatedly. There are thus 71 out of 114 surahs in the Quran that contain abrogating and or abrogated verses. Not once in the Bible does the God of Israel change his ordinance for an equal or a better one, but they occur in 62.28% of the verses of the Quran. Hence, although the Quran is holy scripture for over 1 billion people, it nonetheless contains no decent original spiritual or religious precepts or traditions that belong to it in pure form. There is neither salvation nor redemption for its followers, except in promises of booty, plunder and rapine if the followers survive jihad, holy war, and if not, the rewards in the afterlife are eternal carnal and sensual pleasures in Muhammad's physical version of paradise. That is, the dead, murderous jihadists will be rewarded in the afterlife what they are forbidden to have in life on earth. Drinking wine, singing, music, dancing, painting or sculpting human or animal forms, gambling, wearing gold or silk, playing chess, having sex among unmarried consenting adults, reading and exploring the beliefs of others, etc., etc. It is then not a great wonder that many male believers would look forward to eternal sex with the promised 72 virgins mass-produced in Muhammad's paradise for the dead jihadists. The Quran is the only holy scripture that mandates its followers, by divine sanction, to forcibly convert, subjugate, or slaughter all unbelievers anywhere and everywhere in the world. These are not the attributes of a religion, but are most certainly the attributes of a cult. The cult of Muhammad, since the two pillars upon which Muhammadan Islam is erected are his Quran and his Sunnah. In conclusion, comparing the Quran to the Bible is like comparing the reflected light of the moon to the original light of the sun.